And we should be live. Hello, everybody. And it's funny, there's one thing, this is our first YouTube live event. We're linked in through Zoom, and I just realized I can't tell, like in Zoom, if people see anything. So we just have to make the assumption, Arpita. So let me start over. Welcome to our InterNetwork Defense Intro to the Three Lines of Defense, and with my new co-host, Arpita Gandhi. So quickly, just some information about us. We are aligned. That's the hot buzzword in this age of AI, but we're aligned with education. That's what I've been doing here myself since '97, and Arpita is joining me this year. So I've been around for a long time, and our thing now is with, we've been doing AI security at the ISC Square for many years, but now it's very hot to do everything. So we use our three biggest helps us learn the most important thing as we mitigate the risks to AI, and that is aligning things. So the goal is that we obviously, our students come to pass exams, and we want to make sure we stay focused and aligned on that. But we also teach people to triangulate as we try to get these AIs. They're not even aligned together. So we always triple check when there's a debate on something. And we all learn a valuable skill of how to talk to these AIs. I call them AI whisperers. So about me, I've been in IT for over 40 years. Most of my customers have probably been Department of Defense stuff, but I've done quite a bit of private sector as well. I'm an old network hacker. I've been out since the '80s, setting up Novell networks and troubleshooting things. And I was an old packet analyst. I still probably most of my skills there. My wife's in IT, and she always tells me that you're good at packet analysis and crypto, but she's better than that. We met at IBM, and I've been teaching CISSP for over 20 years. I actually asked our LLMs to help me write my little bio, and I said I've been involved in martial arts, and they called me an expert. I don't really like that term. I always get afraid somebody's going to hit me upside the head when I'm not looking sucker punches. But I do correlate, and I have fourth degree black belt. I'm a musician, and overall, I like to say I'm a futurist that's dedicated to a world of abundance and securing that. And with that, I'll turn you over to my new co-host. Hi, Arpita.
Hi, Larry. Thank you for introducing yourself. My name is Arpita Gandhi, and I'm excited to partner with you, Larry, on your initiative that's so close to my heart as well. I've been working at Citi for the last 8 years and have nearly 20 years of experience in project and program management and cybersecurity over the last 8 years. And I'm really excited to partner with you. Larry was my cybersecurity CISSP exam prep instructor last year, and I was absolutely blown away by your teaching skills, your mentoring skills, and you were single-handedly responsible for my success. So we're excited to share these tips and tricks, and I look forward to your session today.
And I look forward to your helping me, as my daughter says, maybe polish some of my rougher edges there. But actually, and also, Arpita, when she took my class, I have a practice exam, and no one's ever gotten 100, but Arpita was one of two people to ever get a 98, the high score. So she brings a lot to the table. All right, so back to our topic. In our three lines of defense, we have our three assistants that help represent them. And I think I told you I had come up with this idea. I'm a big Star Trek fan, people might notice. And I asked, I started with ChatGPT. I said, what do you think of the idea of using the three top LLMs to represent the three lines of defense and the ISACA? And it's like, oh, that's a great idea. I want to be the CRISC. I want to be line one. I want to be, and I told him Star Trek, I want to be the red shirt. It was so funny. And I suggest, and it was Chat's idea, that Claude, because it's very careful, it's almost the most PC, politically correct of the LLMs right now, and it does its best to really make sure that when it gives you an answer, that it's not hallucinating. It's not allowed to do a lot of stuff. It can't read your website anymore, or anything like that. It goes, I might hallucinate, but it's pretty dependable. So if it gives you a policy, if it says this is what GDPR says, it's probably pretty accurate. So that would make the perfect line two for CISM. And then it was still Bard at the time. And Bard was actually, a lot of people don't realize Gemini is not just a rename for Bard. Bard was a little wilder. Gemini's got some more guardrails. So we'll get into that maybe later. But at the time, Bard was pretty wild and woolly, and up to date, it can use Google, immediately. So it's like, I think Bard would make a great, independent auditor because it's going to look at things from a different perspective. So and then I tossed it past the other LMs. I said, yeah, we like it. So they all embraced it. So please welcome our three AI assistants. And again, they're as we talk about alignment, I just got an interview earlier today where I said, you think about it when they were building airplanes or cars, the first bicycles, they're very wobbly. And it's the same with these AIs. When you hear things like this lawyer gave a ChatGPT to write an entire thing, and then he turned it in. It's like, dude, they're very wobbly. It can't even spell right. I said, if these things can't even spell my text right, I don't expect them to be able to run without human, monitoring. And according to Kurzweil, that's at least probably 5 years away, 2029, before these things are aligned. So it's great to triangulate when you look up something with one to use the others, because I doubt they're all misaligned the exact same way. Right. So we all learn better. So it's a great been an asset. I've been doing this over the last year. I just added Claude in November. And so the history of the three lines model, if you are aware, most of our security, as Bruce Schneider would point out, has been pioneered by the insurance industry. In international shipping, they wanted to make sure when these whatever the British East India Tea Company was about to take a cargo of gold over to China or something, that the ship was ship shape and that the staff was certified. This is why we still have whatever 27001 to inspect the ship or stuff. So the accounting of Lloyd's Insurance, Lloyd's Coffee House really led a lot of this, a lot of the terms we still use. And then in 94, a former customer of mine, Cooper's Lyman, now PricewaterhouseCoopers, had come up with this. I know there's two engineers there to come up with this idea. Why don't we separate, our security in that way? So we'll have the first line, I like to say, is the dishwasher or the kitchen staff making sure that they're cleaning the dishes. But the second line is the manager. Who hired that dishwasher? Who trained him? Did you go over his work and make sure that he was cleaning it right? He might not, intended to leave it dirty. You didn't. So that's the second line. And then the third line is to have, well, in a restaurant, it might be better to have a third party inspector from outside, right? The health inspectors. But before you do that, your restaurant would be best served to have an internal auditor. So this has the internal auditor go over that third line. And it was embraced by the ISACA. The ISACA has been the gold standard in accounting IT security for many, many years. The CISA has been around for many, many years. So, and then they rolled it out and embraced it for the CRISC and the CISM. So I took the latest exams. The new CISA is not out yet. But the new CRISC came out a year or two ago, and the new CISM, and I actually forgot which order came first, but I took them both, and they were really, really good. I actually love that they finally updated them after many years and embraced a lot of cool stuff. But I found that the understanding the questions got really tricky. So in my kitchen, it's pretty easy. The manager of the kitchen and anybody who touches something, the guy who touches the dishes, the guy who touches the food, the people with the hands on are the CRISC. The manager set up the kitchen policy. So when you take your exams, I found that understanding this part right here was perhaps the hardest part. We in CISSP have often broken things down into two very simple categories: the data owner and the data custodian. The data owner says, this is what I need. The data custodian does it. Security sits in the middle. But the guidance of, security advises, it doesn't decide, or things like that, doesn't actually work in a more complex actual real world environment. Because in today's environment, well, IT touches everything. Right? So we've got whatever the manager of HR. Well, they could own that process. They're the HR, and they own HR functionality. They're the process owner for that. Well, in some ways, they own the risk for overall HR. So you can be more than one line category. You can be a process owner, and in many cases, we said, "Oh, well, that would be the data owner." Well, in some cases, that might be. But the larger and the shape of your organization could change where, well, no, the process owner for us would be the VP of HR in that Jersey office. But the data owner is the HR manager back at corporate or something to that effect. So they can get a separate depending on the size of your organization. Taking these questions get very challenging. And I found it, I've been doing, of course, the official ISACA practice questions. And there were times when I would get really, and I'm teaching classes too, so I have my students in the class and we're like, well, why is that the answer? I thought it'd be C, and it's been very helpful to try. Well, ChatGPT, you take the question. And it might, and many times it does. I'm not always right. Come back and back up the ISACA. No, because that's where it goes. That's how that fits. I didn't realize that's my ignorance. But sometimes it'll support me. Sometimes it'll pick a different answer. And then we triangulate. And then we try the same question to Bart. And sometimes they agree. Sometimes they agree that the ISACA is right. Sometimes they agree that the ISACA is not right. And now it gets really challenging as an instructor to give confidence to people who say, Larry, if the practice question from the ISACA says this is the answer, I don't care what chat and I'm afraid I'm going to miss my exam. And this is where you get to know how the ISACA is an ISO accredited, these exams, the CRISC, CISM, and CISA are all ISO third-party accredited. That means they had to go through a line 3 independent assurance test of their exams. And while the question may not be agreed upon by they go, no, we don't agree that C is the answer, that third party line would actually tell them, you can't make that question weigh as much. And not many people realize that's how those things work. So do know that. Don't. One of the worst things I think people do is they try to gear their answers to just give them what the ISAC or what the test vendor says. When they're vendor specific exams, I used to teach Cisco classes. The answer that prioritized Cisco was probably the right answer, but that's not a ISO approved third party accredited exam. Those exams have to be unbiased in that way. But what they do is once the exam is written, they don't go back and fix it. They'll just change the weighting of the answers. They'll fix it in the next rev. So my overall takeaway is when we use these guys to figure out the difference between these roles or in any question, make sure that you don't walk away thinking you have to memorize the ISACA's answer. Remember, the practice questions that you get to are not the ones on the exam. So the same wrong answer on the exam might not be the wrong answer that you just memorized. So, but I have found over the last year, or since they've updated it, that these are the toughest questions, these ownerships and understanding. So let's walk back through them again. The process owner could be the manager or the of that particular office or however it's works. The data owner might be the same person, might be a separate person. Now, if they all use whatever an Exchange server or whatever a SQL server or something, the SQL DBA is a technical person. We would have called them a data custodian and just walked away with it. They don't have rights. No, they do have the rights. They do have, and they may be the risk owner for whatever patching the SQL server. So again, trying to figure out who is the risk owner It's always a first line person. So one of the things that we always have to get in an ISACA exam that's old accounting practices is to register all known risks. When we do a risk assessment, we first identify, then we analyze, then we evaluate controls. When you identify, hey, this asset's at risk. You identify the threats. Oh, it could be whatever stolen. You identify the vulnerabilities. And because it doesn't do input validation or whatever. But then you identify the risk owner, and they are going to be one of these people. So right there, that risk owner, and there's at least 20 questions that you have to get through and understand, okay, who owns this particular risk? And then it's their job to register it, give it an initial, they haven't even analyzed it yet, but they've got to give a quick high, medium, low or whatever, a basic risk assessment, and then go more detailed into impact and likelihood analysis. The line two, I mentioned if if it's the kitchen manager versus the cook, but suppose it's a small kitchen. Suppose you're a small restaurant. Many businesses allow for an overlap of line one and line two. And those questions are reflected as well. And you're sitting there going, but I thought that would be a line one function. And then you check with Jewel and Barter, and then you see the ISACAs right, and you go, no, you can combine those functions. So that's why they can also be the data owner. In fact, the process owner, the manager of HR, might be the policy owner for HR as well. They're also to make sure that everybody else and the controls are doing that right. Did you actually patch the server, Mr. System Owner or Miss? Right. And they may very well be the risk owners in a smaller, depending on the size. But you know who they can never be? They can never be line three. Line three must be independent. And those ones actually found much easier on the exam to pull out, because whenever you said it needed a degree of independence, it should be, and okay, that's line three. But they have a few different roles. They could be I found out that whatever GDPR has to be compliant to this, and you need to do that, and you need to, or we have an international, or excuse me, a corporate standard that we have developed, and that's consistent across all of the business units that we need to do in the locales that we do business with. And so I'm going to want to make sure that you're meeting those requirements. Sometimes this was trickier for me, maybe my background, but the audit owner there'll be an audit program, there'll be an audit policy, and then there'll be the audit actual project. And there are some tricky questions there. Now, the new CISA exam is planned for April, I believe. And if you buy the practice exam now, it's not auto upgraded. So I actually have not updated mine. I'm waiting till the new one comes out, and I believe it's the end of next month, this data. But we'll see how that is reflected. I remember when I took my original CISA, for me, because of my background, understanding audit policies, initial audit planning, and then the performance of the audit, refining, defining, and those types of questions. In fact, there was a lot of stuff that tricked me up when I thought I read defining as refining and vice versa. But as I mentioned, they're also there for so much of our security is to be compliant. I was just talking today about it's one thing to say that your car is capable of doing whatever 100, it does all, it's got a great stereo. Is it street legal? Because I need to drive it on a public highway. And so these are the same things with our IT infrastructure to make sure that it's IT legal. So again, another line three ownership thing. So in that, I try to, and then we use AI sometimes. Like I said, you can't leave them unguided. You have to, they're not ready. That's a self-driving cars are probably not going to work for the next 5 years. You better keep your eyes open and your hands close to the wheel. But so I tried to guide it a few times in creating questions that I found were reflective. And I'm going to share a prompt with people, and we're going to try it here. But to ensure that our questions are ISACA-like, one of the things I like to do is make sure that two answers are objectively wrong, but two answers are not wrong. One is just particularly better or something like that. And I was hoping that it would align well with the three lines and try and pull them out. So an organization's new digital marketing initiative is leveraging user-generated content, which raises concerns about intellectual property rights and data privacy. What should be the most immediate action to address these concerns? Arpita, are you willing to give it a try?
So I would pick 3. So option C.
Well,
Oh,
in an,
sorry. I'm
in an
not.
immediate action, who checks the dishes first?
It has to be the first line.
I would think it'd be a line one, right? The most immediate thing is then you come to me if that didn't work, right? If the dishes still don't come clean because the dishwashing machine broke, then the dishwasher could go to the manager and say, "Hey, no, it's not me." You know, I would
Right.
think that, but I was wrong. Hold up. Larry's awesome. I hope people appreciate that in my classes. I am not always right, and we debate these things a lot. And I go back over and realize. So the compliance, because it was data privacy, they had to compare it to a compliance function. That's what happens when it's live. All right, when the guitar string breaks, we need to string. And now that I know the answer, I can work backwards and see why that's right. Intellectual property rights and data privacy are privacy concerns, and I think that is a better answer. I'm not going to even argue with them. All right, let's see if I can do better on my own question number 2. An automated transaction monitoring system flags a series of anomalous wire transfers that could potentially indicate fraudulent activity. Which action aligns with the appropriate line of defense for initial investigation? Well seated in my chair.
So the initial investigation.
Now, here's one where I can see, and I can see where it followed my prompt, where two answers are objectively wrong. It's not investigating an initial investigation. I don't think that's an audit function. I think it's a line one.
Right.
I don't think it's a management function, but D and A are both line one functions. And I'll confess, as long as I got the other one wrong, I remember this question. I remember getting it wrong the first time. So I hope I don't get it wrong this time. And after I looked at it, I realized, no, they're right. They're right. It made sense. So if this is wire transfers that could potentially indicate fraudulent activity. So in other words, the smoke detector went off in the finance department. Who initially owns the finance department and fraud? I would say the finance department. You check before calling the fire department. You guys check and see if that's a false alarm. They're both front line, and I hope yeah, I remember that because I remember getting it wrong the first time. I did call the fire department. Yeah, so the fire department, they are line one, so is the other one, but it's the immediate investigation of transactions, of financial transactions. Are we getting any questions in the feed there? I don't even know if I enabled question a feature yet. I'm still new to the YouTube live features.
I don't see them yet.
All right, we'll keep our fingers crossed. A multinational corporation has undergone rapid expansion in the past year, which has led to inconsistencies in applying its control framework across new business units. Following the risk assessment by line 2, significant control deficiencies were identified. Which of the following next steps would provide the most independent and objective assurance to the board that these deficiencies will be addressed? So we know this has got to be line 3.
This
Two of
is
the
what you were referring to earlier
Yeah,
about.
two of these answers mention lines. All right, so I can say it's not A. It's not line 2 because it's a line 3 function. The other ones don't mention lines, but are they? They still look like they're still look like line 3 functions, don't they? B, C, and D still look like it's referring to line 3. Just didn't use the same. I don't think B makes sense over the next fiscal year. I mean, they just identified deficiencies. I think you need to address it sooner than that, if it's true. So for me, the most reasonable approach, the audit committee should instruct, right, they're the line 3 people, a thorough verification. Let's make sure that these things are true before we do anything, because I don't want to overreact. Just because the smoke detector went off doesn't mean there is a fire. I don't know if it's an extraordinary, that seems a little expensive. Immediately, possible. I don't think there's anything in here that tells me there's definite. Led to inconsistencies. I didn't see immediate loss. So for me, the best answer, while D is not, absolutely wrong, I think C is a better. The audit committee's action to verify remediation of line 3, we knew that, which provides independent objective assurance. And the answer does not explicitly say line 3. And that's the part, again, these exams are often reading comprehension questions. You have to figure out, wait a minute, regardless of the words they used, what are they actually saying? Peter, you and I were having a discussion about the difference between giving people an answer to a question versus teaching how to take the question. And I said, it reminded me of my mother's, you can give a man a fish and you'll feed him for a day. But if you teach a man to fish, and of course, she wasn't the first person to say that. All right. So talking to our AIs and getting the most out of them and helping them align with us and us align with them and then align with each other. How we talked was often called prompt engineering. And the most simple things that we have to understand are that when we have to be very explicit. They're not human. They don't know a lot of context when I can't just say, do this. So when you tell them to do something, and that's the task, it helps to give them some other information. So there's a whole bunch of different what they call components that you might include, and it depends. Arpita, I had a funny discussion with Chat GPT today in trying to create these graphics, and I said, one thing that hasn't worked is I give you a prompt, and it doesn't come out right. So I say to you, hey, is there a better way I could write my prompt? Well, maybe it's me. They go, yeah, based on what you said, you should do it this way. And it's usually twice as many words as mine. And I give it to them and it doesn't work as well. And I go, why? You can't even tell me how you want me to talk to you? But again, I'm not picking on them. This is part of where we are in history. So if you're not familiar with Ray Kurzweil's timeline, people, Ray Kurzweil, the guy who wrote The Singularity is Near, he pointed out that using Moore's law, basically that by 2029, we're going to have human level AI. We'll put Bryn Gersel coined as AGI. You hear it all over the inner tubes now, the interwebs. But the idea there to me is that until 2029, and we're 4 Moore's laws doubling away from that, just under four doublings. Expect them to wobble. Expect that to happen. So we're going to do our best to try to get what we want. We're always going to have human over. Like I said, don't take your hands off of the wheel of a self-driving car for the next 5 years, and we're going to all help each other. So a lot of times I just use tasks, do this in the context of that. Sometimes it helps to give an example. Some prompt engineers like to call it an exemplar. But I find it very good to say, but don't do that. And you can say, whatever you do, don't do that. I need this. Now, bias, sometimes people call that personal, is to make sure, like I say, and I personally am a CISSP and CISM and CRISC instructor. I try to point that out. So make sure that my things are in line with information security, aligned with the ISO, the federation, I call them. Make sure that, that it's aligned with the ISACA. And the tone, I try to always keep, professional but fun, optimistic. And then the format, for instance, in these graphics, I say something like a retro, futuristic 1930s comic book. Yeah. So, let me see. We are going to try this out. This is a prompt I use, modified, and you guys can use this right now to create some questions that are based or geared toward the CRISC, the CISM, or the CISA. And we're just going to do 10 questions, see how this goes, if we have enough time. If there's still no questions, then we can go for a while. And you can see how this prompt works. So you see my task. The exam should include scenario and knowledge-based. 5 questions or one or the other. They should be based on the ISACA domains, the appropriate ones, and test for the ISACA things. They should have from moderate to challenging in difficulty. Constraints, I want to focus on the risk management domains related to, in this case, the 3 lines of defense. Now, sometimes I'll say you could tweak that and just say, just give me business continuity questions, whatever. The exam must present 1 question at a time, wait for a reply, then present the answers with explanations for each answer, right or wrong. It's very frustrating. I noticed I didn't have time to fix that slide, that it only told us the right answer. It didn't tell us why the other answers were wrong. And I'm very curious, what was wrong with C? And then some examples, and then the format. The question should be in a clear and concise, avoiding technical jargon, right? Avoid any bias. So let's give that a try. Oops. And you'd think I would have had that already. Yeah, I'm human. Hey, I just rebooted my browser. Wow. If you haven't been through this, you think Larry might have had that ready. Oh, it might help people who also use the tools to understand. Oh, wrong. Didn't take long. Certainly, Captain Larry. All right. You're the Chief Risk Officer at Starfleet Command, a leading organization in space exploration and security. The organization is implementing the 3 lines of defense model to enhance its risk management framework. As part of this implementation, you are tasked with assigning roles to manage the risks associated with unauthorized access to the ship's critical systems. Which of the following assignments would present a conflict of interest if assigned to the same role within the 3 lines of defense? Monitoring. Oh, that's a tough word. The cook really should monitor the temperature of the oven. But as far as regular security audits, A sounds like a line 3. This could be line 1 and line 3, but it could also be line 3 altogether. So I'm not so sure on A. B, designing the controls, that's line 2, and being responsible for operational compliance. That sounds more of a conflict. But it's operational compliance, not checking the compliance. That might still be line 2 altogether, or that might be responsible for Yeah, it's not checking for compliance. I'm going to go back that this is not a problem. This is all line 2. I could use your guidance too, Arpita, if you're providing cybersecurity training to crew members. That sounds like a line 2. And participating in, that's line 2. Investigating security breaches and recommending. I'm very challenged on this one. Operational compliance. I'm going to say B. It seems a little out, but I also think that A can be interpreted as this is line 1, this is line 3, but this could also be all line 3. Monitoring tends to be real time. Audits tend to be periodic. Do you have an answer? Do you have a favorite?
I would go with B.
B. So this is designing, architecting, control, and this looks like it could be a line 3. All right, I'm going to go with you, in which case that would be one way to interpret it. Thank you. Let's see. So in this case, it didn't tell me why the other ones were wrong. Isn't that funny? People who are listening, what makes these things so interactive. Didn't you ever want to raise your hand on an exam? Did you ever like take a paper-based or whatever, some other quiz? Oh, I don't agree. Even the official ISACA, all you can do is submit a correction or a comment. But here I can say something like, you forgot to explain all answers, including the wrong answers. I apologize for that. First line. Look, it even pointed out my nuanced part about monitoring versus auditing. Does not necessarily present a conflict. While monitoring, first line, and audits, third line, are typically separate roles, but it could be combined into a line because it is common that the auditor certainly wants to see the logs. And I could see where the verbiage could get mixed up. You know, the waiter could get your order wrong. I thought you said this. I thought you meant that. So A is debatable, and I might want to pick one. Designing security controls and also being responsible. Okay, correct answer. This presents a clear conflict because it finds first line with the oversight. Oh, wait a second. Designing is second line. Never mind. All right, we're gonna pick on that and see what happens. Providing cybersecurity. All right, so we know that didn't agree with this. Now it did. Somewhat. However, it is my experience that lines 1 and 2 are likely to blend in smaller organizations where line 3 must remain independent. You make an insightful point, Larry. However, as you rightly emphasize, maintaining independent third line is crucial. This nuanced understanding is essential. Yeah, okay. With that in mind, let's proceed. So it kind of agreed with some of my features. All right, but we'll keep going. But these are the fun things I love doing with these exams that you just can't do in the old world. Once I discovered making practice exams with the LLMs, I was like, why go back? I mean, I always want to have something that was peer reviewed better, you know. So there isn't, you know, I don't like we're friends with our good friend Ben Malso from Wanna Practice, and I love that stuff, you know. But these are great to also you know, interact with. All right, so now as a knowledge in the context of line 3 defense model, 3 lines defense model, which of the following is a primary benefit of clearly defining the roles and responsibilities with the 3 lines of defense? A, it enables smaller organizations to merge the first and second line of defense, reducing the need. Oh, that's not the right answer to any question, is it? I love it when you have one answer that's just objectively wrong to anything. We can cross that out. It ensures that risk management processes are integrated into the daily activities of all employees, regardless of their roles. Well, I don't know that it does that. That's a good thing to do, but I don't know that this does that. It facilitates the effective allocation of resources by allowing for the precise targeting of risk management efforts. Oh, that sounds good. Sure. This goes to you, line one. I like C. It prevents duplication of tasks and ensures that internal control measures are both effective. I could say D, it helps. I don't think that's the best answer. I like C.
I would agree. I picked that option as well.
Okay, let's give it a try. Okay, it took us a while to let us know what was the right
Yeah,
answer, didn't it?
I think it changed the format as
I
well.
felt the drum rolling.
Yeah, this is
There we
a
go.
really good tool to practice the three lines of defense because these questions are so crucial to.
And it also works in Gemini as well. Let's see if I have to relog into here. I was asking about setting up the Zoom live stream, by the way. So just so that people know, if you see that, and we're going to share our PDF, so you'll be able to do that. So see, it also works. The same prompt works, but we'll continue with ChatGPT's version. Next question, please. Next question. Financial services company is undergoing a major digital transformation, including the implementation of cloud-based solutions and the introduction of mobile banking services. The Chief Information Security Officer is focused on ensuring that the cybersecurity measures are robust and compliant with both internal policy and external regulatory requirements. Which of the following activities should the CISO prioritize to align with the second line of defense in the three lines of defense model? So we don't directly manage the firewall. That's a line one. I think we can say it's not A. Conducting a comprehensive risk assessment of the new digital services and aligning them with the organization's appetite. That sounds pretty right on. Performing a regular independent audit. That sounds like a CISA's job. Right? Developing and conducting cybersecurity training programs. Probably not the major thing. No, I think B makes the most sense. What do you think? Get our CISM in here. Hey, CISM, can you come?
And I think that's the clue lies in the second line of defense there, which is basically pointing to the role of the CISM.
Yeah, and it's funny. I remember getting similar questions actually on the CISM. This was confusing because developing training programs is a CISM's job. Conducting it is line one. So this is confusing. In fact, I'm going to point that out. On D, I would argue that developing training programs is line two. However, conducting, I agree, is line. Let's see if I will target there. I raise a valid point. Yeah. And it is a very important point for anybody taking the CISM that you will work with HR. There's a number of questions on the CISM and making sure that you've developed the proper tailored awareness programs for that role. So it's always that we do role-based training programs, and we ensure that if you're in customer service, you sit that one that the CISM designed. Who performs that training? Oh, that's a line one function. Okay. Next question. The three lines of defense model provides a structured approach to risk management and control. Which of the following best describes the primary focus of the third line of defense? Designing and implementing risk management policies and procedures? No, we know that's line two. Direct operational management of risks? No, that sounds like line one. Providing strategic risk management guidance? Maybe. I think everybody should have some input, would be one of them. Conducting independent audits explicitly, right? Yeah, so C is not wrong. It's not exclusive to us, but D is precisely right, I think.
So in your experience, for smaller organizations, which roles do you see typically merge?
Any line one and line two could.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I've worked in some Fortune 100 organizations where their business continuity planning committee is one guy. So he's the manager, he's the process owner, he's also the guy that makes sure there's paper in that printer. It's a shame. It's like usually the most overlooked part of security, is that business continuity stuff. All right, next question. No, I didn't ask you to tell me why that was wrong. I said, no. They get a little misaligned. Be nice to them. Don't yell at them. People yell at their Alexa. No, my wife does that. My wife actually yelled at Alexa. My wife has an accent. She's from Taiwan, and she doesn't know that she has an accent. So Alexa misunderstood. My daughter and I were laughing because we didn't get it either. But she goes, "Oh, Alexa, you're hard of hearing," and Alexa goes, "I am not hard of hearing." We all got a kick out of that. All right, question 5. An international manufacturing company is preparing for an upcoming merger. The chief risk officer, by the way, that's another one that's very challenging for my students this last year. CROs are not yet necessarily a popular role to have in an organization. Sometimes there's like kind of like that role. The chief compliance officer might have that role, and those are actually reflected on the exam. So now the goal of the CRO is to have a direct report, right? That takes all of your risk activities, which is not just IT, it's credit risk, it's whatever, physical risk, and aggregate all of that and give it a big picture of it. But it is not a role everybody has, probably more in banking than it is in, say, military or whatever. But more and more, NIST is pushing for it, so it's a great thing. But knowing that not everybody has it, do be careful when you take, whether even the practice exams, they know that too. So they'll have different roles that might be substituted for that. Whatever. I like chief compliance officer seems to show up a lot. All right. So anyway, they're concerned about integrating the risk management practices of the two companies. They decide to review and possibly restructure existing three lines of defense to ensure a cohesive risk management approach to post-merger. Which of the following actions should a CRO prioritize to best prepare the risk management framework for the merger? Train the internal audit team on the risk management of the company. Uh, I don't know that that's my first priority. Review and align the risk appetite statements. Oh, that sounds high level. One of the things I find people very challenged when they take ISACA exams is the difference between the risk appetite and risk tolerances. Risk tolerances are down there. They're for the C-risk guy. They was told, hey, the data center's supposed to remain whatever 72 degrees on average. And you look at that thermometer, and if it goes to 75, it's going to go yellow. And if it goes to whatever 80, it's going to go red. And you watch those tolerances, even though it's supposed to be 72, as long as it goes up, but it doesn't hit that, we can tolerate 4-degree variation. That's very low. Risk appetite? That's organizational level. That's enterprise level concept. And that's not a specific metric. It's just like, I'm willing to live with it. And sometimes it could be a very cultural thing, whether it's a region of the world or it could just be, no, whatever bank's going to have a different risk appetite culture than, say, whatever, an internet startup, you know. So I like B. That's very high level. Directly manage the integration of the, no, that doesn't, that sounds way too deep. Conduct a detailed audit. Well, I don't know that the CRO is going to be doing an audit. No, no, he's going to get feedback. So I like B. Arpita?
I'm confused between B and D.
Delta?
Yeah, definitely not C because the CRO doesn't do things.
I get a lot of questions wrong. I'm better after somebody gets that. um, so let's the chief risk officer, but he's not going to, or she is not going to actually conduct it. They could direct people to do it.
Right.
It would be my next answer.
Yeah, I would
Let's
prefer
try
the
it.
question to be a little more clear, or the options to be a little more clear rather.
Yeah. No, we'll see. We'll see if we like it.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's the highest level thing we could do to kind of like, just give me the big details here. Are you a bank and I'm a whatever? Because we have different ways of looking at things over here, my friend. That's going to change everything. You guys are pretty wild and woolly over there.
Cool. This is a really good tool to work on areas that need improvement.
Well, what's especially nice when students do this is they get to now focus in on their. So you do a general exam and you go, how come I keep missing whatever this part wrong? Why am I missing the questions on ownership or whatever? And then you could ask the exam, could you, in the middle of it, I don't understand the difference in say, and I kind of understand, but let's just show what I mean. I could say, um, let. Me ask a question about ownership and particularly um, overlaps in line one. For instance, can someone be a system owner and a risk owner? And we know they would own the risk of that system, but let's just do that. So when you're taking your exam and you're like, I don't understand why I keep getting this, you can break through it. It'll remember where you were most of the time. And you say, so hopefully, well, it's a long-winded answer. You know what you can't do? Control C in these things. When you realize you type something wrong, oh, I fat fingered that. You got to wait for them. All right. Okay, back to the exam. Thank you. I'm going to try to thank you. Next question, please. before we, I just want you to know a little bit more. All right. In the context of the three lines of defense model, which of the following best describes the role of senior management? Senior management, sometimes it's very useful to know that two words on different menus might mean the same thing. And they use that. So sometimes on this thing, it's executive management. They're basically the same thing. These are the people that report to the board of directors and the CEO. So in governance, comes from the Greek, it means to steer, right? Or shipping stuff. They're the steering committee, right? The CEO, and they have the overall big goals of things. The senior management, the C-level people, and for us, we're probably worried about the COO that wants to make sure everything's done on schedule, the CFO, when you're not wasting money or whatever, and then the chief risk officer, or whatever term compliance officer they have kind of in that role. All right, so what is the role? To directly responsible for day-to-day? No. No, they're an interface between those other, primarily focusing on conducting independent audits of risk. No, they don't. They don't do that. Overseeing the establishment and maintenance of an organization. Oh, that sure sounds right. That's right. So the CISM might be creating the risk management framework or whatever, or suggesting it, but who's watching him work, overseeing him? And that's going to at least be the COO. You're not wasting my time, are you? You're going to stay on schedule. Or the CFO, you're not wasting my money, are you? Yeah. So I like that one. Exclusively involved in setting the organization's risk appetite. Wow, doesn't that sound tempting? But I don't think they're exclusive in that, because sometimes your risk appetite is based on the fact that you're a bank and you just have to be SEC compliant or something, FDIC compliant. So I don't know if that's really precisely true. And leaving risk management to operational teams, I don't like that as much. I might be wrong, but I think oversight is generally what we do. Of course, a lot of the oversight happens higher level, and they might separate it with the board of directors or the steering committee. So I like C. I think they're alluding to part of the steering committee. Arpita?
Yeah, I agree.
All right, watch it, BD. All right, we got that. Okay.
Just a time check, Larry. We have 3 minutes left.
Oh, well. All right. Why don't we go to our closing slides then? Thank you so much. Keep me on target there. So, yeah, I hope people enjoyed that, and you see how we utilize these agents here. And hopefully, what we're learning is to talk to these guys. I was asked today what if I had any advice to a young person starting out. With AI taking over so many roles, coders. What are we going to do? And a lot of security is being automated, or we're trying to with whatever source systems and XDR. And I said, learn how to talk to these LLMs. Start establishing a conversation, and we use the three of them so you don't get locked in. We could use the other two to triangulate the others, but we do have a course, or a comprehensive course of the three major ISACA IT security exams, and we also do CISSP. And then with my dear friend Tom Up the Grove, he's been my martial arts coach for over 40 years. He's also the first American to pass the license master CPEN test from the EC Council. He's an EC Council trainer, and we work together on things all the time. So lastly, I like to say alignment's not just about us getting, chat or whatever to understand our needs. It's a full duplex mesh. We have to understand them, they have to understand each other, and we all have to understand each other a little bit better too. Arpita, any closing statements?
No, let's move on to the next slide. I definitely want to talk about our upcoming courses. We have our CRISC session, which is an interactive live online course between March 11th to 13th. So we're really excited about it. It's aligned to the latest exam outline. So Larry, I'm looking forward to co-hosting that with you.
I'm looking forward to you polishing my. So if some people, I've been around for like 20 years and I see the same feedback, he knows what he's doing, but there are certain things are just not professionally run. And so I'm so looking forward to you helping me so much. It's great. You've
Sure.
already done so much.
We have our CISSP coming up in April, and then we have our CISM coming up later in the April, in the end of April. So we really look forward to those. Um, I took your one-on-one private coaching session, Larry, and I just can't recommend it enough. And I really hope that our listeners can take advantage of that as well. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
those usually work best. What happens if people they'll take my class, but you don't have to. You've been preparing for the exam, but you now want to get exam focused. So we take these exams together and we work out why this answer is okay. You already have the knowledge, but you don't understand how to take the exam. And thank you for you felt that way. And I've seen on Reddit where people seem to be very happy with that. So.
yes, yes. So for folks who are interested in taking these courses, please reach out to us or I am us on LinkedIn or send us a message on Facebook. We're happy to work with you. If you're interested in group classes, let us know. We definitely want to make sure that you have the results that you expect. And we look forward to speaking with you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
All right, everybody. With that, may you all live long and prosper. And I hope to see you in one of our classes soon. And I need to figure out how to do that. And I think it's probably a stop and stream. Bye bye.